Good morning and welcome. It's 8 a.m. in the Gambia on Wednesday, the 5th of August, 2026. I am Peter Gomez and this is Coffee Time, live on 92.1 on FM in the Gambia. Around the world, we are at www.wcr.gm, and Coffee Time is brought to you in association with JAWO, Wave the Gambia, Global Properties, Bloomberg Africa, TAF Africa Global, Trust Bank PLC, Global Auto Care, and JFIN Money Transfer. Later in the program, we'll hear from our reporters on the stories unfolding across the country and take a quick look at what's trending in today's newspapers. We'll also bring you another edition of our weekly GSM feature, Pinchum Comium. Our main conversation this morning, though, is with one of the country's most respected journalists, historians, and public affairs commentators, Alhaji Demba Ali, or D.A. JAWO. Yes, I've made him an Alhaji.
If you're an entrepreneur and your business is not yet registered, if you're looking to grow your registered business, or you're an accomplished professional, our Elevate program supports you with access to finance, access to markets, access to capacity building. Sign up now or refer a friend at ecobank.com/elevate. Elevate by EcoBank. A better way, a better Africa.
Santa Yala.
Nga xaar utal Wave nga scan nga fay nag doo ci yokku dara.
JAWO, the company, have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. JAWO is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
As part of our special week of political analysis, we're bringing you voices that have not only observed Gambian politics, but in many respects have helped shape the national conversation around governance, democracy, and public accountability. Our guest this morning is one such voice. D.A. or Demba Ali JAWO is one of the Gambia's most distinguished journalists, authors, and public affairs commentators. Over a career spanning several decades, he has chronicled the country's political journey through the First Republic, military rule, democratic transition, and the current era of constitutional governance. He has written extensively on Gambian history and politics, championed press freedom, and also brings the perspective of someone who has served in government as a cabinet minister. Well, that unique combination of journalist, public servant, and commentator gives him a rare vantage point from which to examine the issues shaping our nation today. And this morning, we'll not only ask what is happening in Gambian politics, but how today's events compare with the country's political past, what lessons history offers our leaders, and what the rapidly changing political landscape means as the country prepares for the December presidential election. D.A., that's a massive build-up, isn't it? Welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, Peter.
But don't worry, I trust you to measure up.
Well, I will try my best.
You've covered Gambian politics, as I said, for over 4 decades. How would you describe the last few weeks in Gambian politics, especially the last week? Probably one of the most consequential weeks politically since the 2016 transition.
Indeed, it had been a very interesting week, particularly on the political side. As you know, we are approaching the presidential elections in December, and, things are hotting up. Virtually on a daily basis, we're seeing new things happening, on the political terrain. So, as you said, last week was a very interesting week as well, when we saw one of the opposition parties, the camping to the NPP, to the ruling coalition or Grand Alliance, as they would call it. That's the Gambia Democratic Party, which is very, very significant. It is significant in several aspects. One, it has been the GDC had been a factor in Gambian politics since 2016. Mm-hmm. Although, we all had seen that the GDC had been declining in numbers as well as in popularity and whatever. I'm not sure about them joining the ruling camp is quite a big plus for Barrow. I'm not sure about it. But if you look at his demeanor on that particular day, that is Barrow himself, he was all the time smiling. He seems to have been very happy that he finally got Mama Kande. I don't know for whatever reason. Some people maybe attribute it to the fact that, he's contested against Mama and Mama defeated him. So this time round, probably he feels that he's got the one who defeated him under his arm, whatever the case. But he seems to have been quite, happy that Mama has finally joined his camp. And because I understand he's been following him for a very, very long time. Maybe he thinks that getting Mama probably is one way of at least getting the whole of Jimara, for instance, under his wings, whatever the case, because they all come from the same place.
I'm sure you used the word decamp to describe what Mama has done. I'm sure he will describe it a different way because he says Boka Agjoin Dubena.
well, I wonder what the difference is as far as I'm concerned. Probably it's a difference in language here, but definitely.
As I said,
join and Boka. Yeah. I cannot see the difference.
As you said, the alliance would have been unthinkable a few years ago. What does it tell us about the evolution of our politics?
Quite a lot. The very fact that those who are enemies today in politics could be friends tomorrow, because politicians are more interested in what they can reap from whatever alliances they make than, what they did in the past. And so, we've seen that on several occasions, people who have been very critical of one side eventually becoming a part and parcel of that side, and in the end, we've seen that there are a lot of examples. So, it tells quite a lot about politics, particularly in this country as well. People seem to concentrate more on their personal interests than the interests of, the people or the people that they claim to represent. All these are factors which are very, very prominent in Gambian politics. Mm-hmm.
You're one of the few in the business, in the journalism business who've observed the Jawara era, lived through the Jammeh era, and now the Barrow administration. How does today's political environment compare with those earlier periods?
Quite a lot of difference. During the Jawara era, as you said, I was a journalist at that time. In fact, I was one of the journalists who was actually arrested and detained because of what I wrote and other things under the Jawara era. Mm-hmm. I also was arrested under the Jammeh era as well for what I wrote and whatever. Fortunately, so far, I've not been arrested under the Barrow era. So, these are all...
And you stress so far.
Well, and I hope not. It will not happen. These are all indicators of, the different styles of government or something of that. Jawara's government was not a very repressive government like Yahya Jammeh, definitely. But it was quite things were quite lackadaisical.
Could the word repressive be used even to describe the Jawara era?
No, it wasn't. It definitely, I cannot, I don't think it fits the Jawara era. Jawara era was, well, of course, there was some kind of lackadaisical attitude in management and other things. But honestly, it was not repressive at all. And there was not much interference with what other people are doing. For instance, as I said, I was one of those journalists who was arrested for what I wrote.
Can you remember what you wrote?
Yeah, it was something critical of the police or something of the sort. And the police were not happy with it, and they came for me, arrested me, detained me. But just a few weeks, or is it about 2 or 3 weeks after my release, I went to the UK on a government scholarship to go and study. So you see, it shows you the type of government that the Jawara regime.
That's carrot and stick.
If it had been under the Yaya Jammeh regime, definitely I would not have gone anywhere else.
You would have gone to his 5-star hotel.
Absolutely, that would have been a different era altogether. I mean, so that's it. So the Jawara regime definitely was not a repressive regime. It was very mild in the way it was treating people and other things. So that was it. Of course, democracy was very fragile then. It was not as developed as we supposed to expected it to, because we've seen what
the democracy was fledgling.
It was kind of fledgling, probably, because that was the era. Because we've seen that in all the countries, neighboring countries, they had one-party rule. But in the Gambia, I mean, we never had that thing. Even though, PPP was the dominant party all the time. But there was always, tolerance for the opposition, and the opposition existed all along. So you see, that was an indication that the Jawara regime definitely was trying as best as they could to carry on with some semblance of democracy, unlike what happened after him.
Well, he didn't have a choice because globally he was seen as a human rights champion.
Yeah, he was definitely, because eventually Banjul became the human rights capital of Africa. So that was definitely
and he was one of those called upon to mediate in the Iran-Iraq war.
Yes, he did, and also in the Liberia conflict as well. He played a great part as well, because you remember
ECOMOG
was created here in Banjul. So he was kind of definitely.
Then our friend came along, Yaya Abdul Jamus Junkung XY so Jammeh.
That was an other era, a completely different era, and that definitely took the Gambia backwards in several ways. When it comes to democracy, human rights, or whatever, it took us back. Gambia should have passed this long time ago, but unfortunately, because the way Yaya was, running his administration was definitely not good for this country, not good for the people of the country, not good for development and anything else. So that was it,
And it was during his time that you became president of the Gambia Press Union. Why, did he have so many problems with the media?
Yeah, that was it. Yaya and his government were definitely anti-media. They didn't like journalists. For whatever reason, rather than encouraging journalists to, work with them for the development of the nation, they were, just harassing journalists and doing everything that they could. They just wanted to get journalists under their wings, and if those who resist coming under the wings of the government were being harassed, I was then at the Daily Observer. I know what has happened there. Daily Observer was on a daily basis the journalists there were being harassed. Remember, Kenneth Best, the founder of the Daily Observer, was on ceremoniously deported to Liberia, and a lot of bad things happened. They even, at one time, the immigration even had to camp right on at the gate of the Daily Observer, looking at the credentials of any journalist who goes in or out. Not only journalists, but even people who came to, place advertisement were not spared as well. So, they were just trying to squeeze the paper as much as possible. And then eventually, what happened? Then eventually, Jammeh and his people acquired the Daily Observer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Daily Observer, you could say, they escaped somehow, because what happened to the Point newspaper, we all know the tragedy with Haida.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, in the case of Daily Observer, they just took over the paper. In the case of the Point, because they were unable to take over the paper, they had to do something else.
They thought if you decapitate the head, then the body will die.
That was it. Yeah.
And credit to Papsen and the others for keeping the paper going.
Oh yes, I can still remember, at that funeral, Pap said that he was going to give up, that it's not worth it, it's not worth his life. So I was one of those who actually persuaded him. I told him this is Deda's legacy. If you give up, then it means definitely Deda, wherever he was.
The state or whoever was behind the killing,
they would be happy.
Would have got what
this
they
is
wanted.
Exactly what they wanted, and let's try as much as possible. Let's keep on, continue with the paper. And eventually he was convinced that we can go ahead and do it.
And then, we went to elections 2016, things changed, and Barrow, took over in January 2017, and he's still there. So how do things compare, whether for the media, for politicians, for other sectors of society in the past 10 years?
Yeah, certainly when you compare the state of the media under the JAME regime and the Barrow regime, there is a lot of difference, definitely. I mean, there is kind of press freedom under the Barrow government. That's absolutely no doubt about. The media is quite free now to do as much as they could. Even though there have been maybe a few issues here and there. We've seen those things, but they are inevitable in any kind of democracy. But in a nutshell, the media is much freer under the Barrow government than it had ever been, particularly under Yahya Jammeh.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Mama Kandeh and Barrow and alliances, history tells us that political alliances often succeed in winning elections, but they struggle in governing. What lesson should today's political actors draw from both the 2016 coalition and earlier alliances? Let's not forget, 2016 was not the first time opposition parties were trying to come together to remove Jammeh.
Yes, of course. I mean, there have been several attempts. You can remember what happened with NAD, and other alliances have been there before 2016. And eventually, when 2016 came, well, they managed to do the job. But we know that the other alliances before that, that's particularly NAD, because of maybe personal differences, differences in approach or whatever, they didn't succeed in standing up to the regime.
They didn't speak as a unified voice.
Absolutely,
one
that
voice.
was a problem. But in the case of 2016, I think everybody was fed up with Yahya Jammeh, and they came together. Again, the GDC and Mama Kandeh played a very crucial role in that particular election, because everybody eventually, at the beginning was quite angry that Mama refused to join the coalition. But I have no doubt that if the GDC had joined the coalition then, coalition 2016, Yahya Jammeh would have still been here. Because the thing is, it was the GDC took most of their votes from the Jammeh camp.
You just assume that they would have gone to the coalition.
It's very, very unlikely that those people would not have voted for the coalition. Yes, most of those who voted for Mama would not have voted for the coalition.
So he was the kingmaker.
He was in this particular. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise.
Given the circumstances that led
to. I'm quite convinced that if Mama had not been, gone on his own, honestly, Jammeh would have still been here. Because the difference was very few votes between him and the coalition 2016, and most of those who voted for Mama are very likely to have voted for Jammeh if Mama had joined the coalition. So that was it.
So what lesson should today's political leaders, actors in general, draw from the past coalition experiences?
Yeah, quite a lot of lessons, definitely. The first lesson is that coming together and forming a formidable coalition, particularly on the side of the opposition, would have been a very good thing for them. It could have helped the situation. But it's unfortunate that is not likely to happen. Because what we are seeing...
Yeah, well, UDP has withdrawn from the talks.
What we are seeing is definitely...
and the papers are reporting today that PPP has also pulled out of those talks.
Yeah, so these are the issues. Even though...
So the center apparently cannot hold and things have started falling apart.
Yeah, so it's very, very unlikely that we'll ever have a cohesive opposition coalition. We may end up having 2 or even 3 opposition coalitions. It's all possible. But that is for the advantage of the incumbent. That is very likely that he could have it much, much easier to pass through, with all those people. But again, you can never tell, because, if you look at the parliamentary election, National Assembly elections in 2017, the last one, I think it was 2022 or something, the last National Assembly elections. In 2021, President Barrow actually defeated his nearest rival, that is Hussein Dabo, with a substantial, difference in votes. But when it came to the National Assembly elections, we all know that the opposition camp actually got the majority of the popular
vote,
votes.
yes.
Yeah, they took the popular votes. Even though they ended up having virtually the same number of National Assembly seats with the NPP. But the advantage President Barrow has is that he has the power also to nominate 5 people who actually tip the scale in these instances here.
From your reading of Gambian political history, has the UDP, the biggest single opposition party in the country, reached a point where it needs to redefine its political message for a younger generation of voters?
Yes, there is no doubt about that. Some people actually have been calling for UDP to reevaluate themselves and probably look for a younger candidate than continuing with Ousainou Darboe. Probably, that could have helped. Even though, there is no reason to believe that, even at this age, Ousainou cannot be able to win elections. There are people who are older than Ousainou.
Well, Paul Biya is still winning in Cameroon.
Absolutely, and with a substantial majority. So, it's definitely, the age doesn't matter here much, but probably it's the perception, the way people perceive things, and sometimes it can also be a factor in the elections. And, probably people feel that he's been there for how many years now? He's contested several elections and he has not been able to make it. Is it likely that he would be able to make it this year? Probably if they had changed their candidate, it could have brought in a little, some kind of new perspective to it or something of that. That's what some analysts would say. But as I say, the age definitely doesn't matter here much. Yeah.
And you don't talk about Ousainou Darboe without talking about Adama Barrow. President Barrow has demonstrated an ability to attract former rivals into his political camp. Is this his greatest political strength?
Yes, you can say so, definitely. He's been very, very good at attracting some people who have been very hostile to him in the past, So how he's been doing it, it's not easy to say. But it's a plus on his side. This is, I think he's got some, I don't know how he always does it, but it's a plus on his side. And, if he continues this way, definitely it will help him a lot, yeah.
And if he has one vulnerability going into the December elections, what would you say? What do you think that vulnerability is?
Yeah, I've worked with President Barrow at close quarters. I know he loves this country, and he's an epitome of tolerance. He's a very tolerant person. I have absolutely no doubt about that. But probably one area that he needs to have reconsidered was going for a third term. We all know that when he first came to power, his promise was to serve only 3 years. But he went on to serve the whole term. He went in again for a second term. And now he's planning to go for a third term. I think that is a mistake as far as I'm concerned. He shouldn't have done that, because that is going to negatively affect his legacy. Because the thing is, we all have seen, as I said, he's one of the, I think the third longest serving head of state in the ECOWAS region today, after Alassane Ouattara and for Nyazimbe. Of course, John Mahama is coming for a second term, but whatever the case, Barrow is now the third longest serving head of state, and he has never been elected head of ECOWAS. So
is that significant? Because there's been a lot of conversation around
it. It is significant. Of course, I had my nephew, Dr. Ismail Assise, giving a different perspective for it. But as far as I'm concerned, it is quite significant. The very fact that ECOWAS have not elected him to serve as their leader, and people who have come well after him have been elected to serve as leader. Yeah. I think it's significant. It shows that
two incidents. Leave you scratching your head, despite government spinning.
Yeah.
Mbalo was just voted in, and the next thing He took over the chairmanship.
Even Tinubu.
And then look at Senegal. Jomai Faye.
Even Tinubu. And
although government is now selling this thing that to be chair you must want it first.
No, I think if they had offered him, I see no reason why he would reject it. He would definitely, but the thing is, as you know, ECOWAS also have their protocols, their things that they insist on. One, they want all their leaders to be good examples to the rest. You shouldn't.
Well, they made a big mistake with Mbalo.
We shouldn't go beyond 2 terms. That is one aspect of it. And also, we know that when Barrow came, he promised 3 years, and then he reneged on that. So you see, these are all lessons that ECOWAS don't want, to kind of. As far as I am concerned, I think his colleagues were not quite happy that he's not keeping to his word, and that could have some ripple effects, with the other leaders if they kind of show sign of kind of elect him to such a position or something. How would the others will see it? Somebody who is not keeping to his promises, and somebody also is planning to go for a 3rd term, because we all had Barrow saying that he's a fan of term limit, but he has not demonstrated that. The very fact that he is going for a 3rd term, I think, as far as I'm concerned, is definitely not good for his legacy. He shouldn't have gone for the 3rd term. He would have remained as a respected statesman within the sub-region if he had stopped at his 2 terms and then call it quits. But, well, that's the situation now.
Let me ask you then, nearly 10 years after the democratic transition, how would you assess the health of Gambian democracy? What has improved? What still concerns you?
Of course, you can say a lot of things have improved as far as democracy is concerned, because we are coming from a dictatorship, and definitely the way things are going right now, the media is quite free. They can,
Under Yahya Jammeh, you and I cannot have this kind of conversation.
Absolutely. So, there are a lot of things have improved as far as democracy is concerned. Of course, there are a lot of concerns, because we all seen, the first thing, I think the first mistake that President Barrow made was that picking a big group as his advisors. And, but if you look at those advisors, there are people I think he could have chosen as advisors more appropriately than the ones he has chosen. Because, if you look at it, there are people with very, very good credentials as far as most of those issues are concerned that he's supposed to be advised on, but instead he chose, people within his camp, people who can hardly advise a head, a head of a household rather than head of state. So that's the. I think he could have chosen people who are more seasoned to advise him. And we've seen what is going on. We've seen the government losing very important cases and all those things. I think these are all. Bad advice that he's receiving from people, because we know that he hasn't got the capacity. President Barrow, we all know, some people call him the accidental president, and that is, I think that's true.
I don't think those people are still calling him that
Yeah,
today.
Of course. The way he came was definitely accidental. Nobody ever thought, even Barrow himself never, anticipated that one day he would be head of state. And then suddenly here he was elected as head of state. So he doesn't have the capacity actually to tackle most of these things. So he should have had very good advisors who would be advising him on to be doing things in the right way. But unfortunately, that's not the situation, because we all seen that, he has got so many advisors, but hardly would they give him the good advice that he needs.
27 minutes past 8 o'clock, leaving us about 3-4 minutes. If you were advising young Gambians voting for the first time, what would you urge them to look for in those seeking the presidency?
I think there are a few things one should look at. How committed those people are, because we all know politicians, sometimes they go around promising everything.
Sometimes. Yeah, they always do.
Yeah, they go about promising everything, and when it comes to delivery, it's a different thing altogether. So, all these are issues that the young people who are actually voting for the first time should be able to consider. Is it...
Let me ask Martin, have you voted before? Martin has voted before.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
older than I think.
Yeah, I think it's important that the young people should bear all those things in mind. When they are voting, let us look at the character of the person they are voting for. It's not just people going around shouting about and making all kinds of promises. Are they deliverable? The promises that they are making, can they be able to deliver those promises? I mean, these are all factors that need to be considered in making a choice as to who to vote for.
And if I ask you to advise the young voters, how about, our own sector? What role should the media play during this election year?
As always, the media's role in elections is very, very, very important and crucial as well. Let us be careful of not finding dissent and kind of doing things that would actually cause kind of trouble for the country or whatever. I think it's important that the media should always be quite careful of whatever they write or whatever they broadcast or whatever. Try as much as possible, particularly in this era of social media, when anything goes. You don't just see anything on social media and think it is the fact. It is not always. It's important to always verify your stories before you put them out, because it has a potential to cause trouble and cause problems within the country, and we don't pray for trouble
Absolutely
in this country.
Not.
So the journalists need to be very, very careful. Verify all your sources, all your information before you can put it out in the public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And finally, having reported on this country's politics for much of your professional life, are you optimistic about where Gambian democracy is heading?
Yes, slightly optimistic, but I am a little bit concerned also the way things seem to be developing.
Let's start with the positive, slightly optimistic.
Well, slightly optimistic for the fact that there is an element of tolerance within the government. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very, very important. If the head of state and his government are tolerant and they are very ready to accept, criticisms and, the other side as well, that is one aspect which can help at least promote our democracy. Pessimistic on the sense that, we have seen most of the things that we have been, criticizing during the JAME regime are coming back. For example, we have seen what is happening to the public media. This is what we all have been talking about.
The public media meaning GRTS.
GRTS and Gambia Daily or whatever, what the public media. I think it's very unfortunate that we are going back to the old days when the government seems to kind of control the public media and deny access to the opposition in everything. We have seen that whatever the NPP does, that's the ruling party, it is broadcast on GRTS. Usually, sometimes the whole day they are on their events and other things. Hardly do they report anything about the opposition. And that's unfair, because the public media belongs to all Gambians. It's the Gambian taxpayers who keep the public media alive. So it is unfair that the government would control it and then deny access to the other side.
Dear, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Peter.
Our sincere thanks to Demba Ali JAWO, D.A. JAWO, veteran journalist, author, and former information minister, for joining us on Coffee Time this morning.
If you're an entrepreneur and your business is not yet registered, if you're looking to grow your registered business, or you're an accomplished professional, our Elevate program supports you with access to finance, access to markets, access to capacity building. Sign up now or refer a friend at ecobank.com/elevate. Elevate by EcoBank. A better way, a better Africa.
Vive la fe. Sant yàlla. looy xaar utal Wave nga scan nga fay te nag doo ci yokku dara.
charges. Scan to pay money, no problem. 0% no charges.
JAWO Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. JAWO Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.